Most people don't set out to ruin their own lives. However, the path to doing so is often paved not with sudden decisions, but with a series of barely noticeable steps, small compromises, minor stumbles, moments we don't assign importance to. There's a harsh, rarely spoken truth about married women, a truth that most men simply don't see. This is what makes these women particularly susceptible. Not because of weakness, not because of a lack of morality, but because human nature is designed in such a way that no one is immune to temptation. No woman wakes up intending to destroy everything she has built for so long. It all starts innocently, with a simple conversation, a glance that lingers a little too long, a slight flutter in her chest at the sight of an unexpected message from another man. This isn't immediately infidelity. It's a subtle, gradual blurring of boundaries. Psychologists have been studying this phenomenon for decades. They call it the slow erosion of personal boundaries. Thought by thought, gesture by gesture, until one day, a woman looks at her reflection in the mirror and doesn't recognize herself. So why do some married women become such easy prey? And most importantly, how do they find justification for it in their own souls? These are the questions we will now discuss. Firstly, the unspoken emptiness. Why married women seek attention outside. A true marriage is a bond capable of surviving the test of time, the difficulties of everyday life, and even temptations. But not all relationships maintain the strength they had at the beginning. Many women, despite the vows once made, eventually begin to feel an inner need for external attention. And most often, this is not at all related to physical attraction. The root of the problem lies in psychology, in the deeply ingrained human need to be seen and to matter. It's a common mistake to assume that such women are looking for a deliberate escape. In reality, they are usually just looking for something that once was and that has imperceptibly disappeared. Human nature strives for closeness, especially female nature. For women, emotional connection is particularly important, not just physical presence, but the feeling of, I am important, I am noticed. In the early stages of marriage, this connection seems inviolable. Long night talks, loving glances, meaningful touches. This feeling intoxicates. It gives strength, inspiration, a sense of fullness of life. But with time, routine sets in. Life turns into a series of repeating scenarios. Instead of deep conversations, discussions about budgets and shopping lists. Instead of passion, fatigue and duties. And at some point, a woman realizes that she has become unnoticeable. Not as a wife or a mother, but as a woman. That's when the internal crack begins. Psychologists and relationship researchers state, the quietest but most dangerous destroyer of marriage is not conflict, but indifference. When no one sees you anymore, when the question, how are you, is answered out of inertia, when glances no longer linger, when a compliment becomes a rarity. A woman, not feeling her worth in the marriage, may not even realize how her subconscious begins to seek validation from other people. Sometimes in completely innocent situations. People are willing to do anything to avoid feeling alone, even if it means losing themselves in the process. A simple compliment from a stranger, an attentive glance, a conversation where she is truly listened to, not just heard. A moment when she feels interesting, alive, desired. These small moments can become a breath for a soul suffocating in the confined space of predictability. Marriage means stability, reliability, security. But the paradox is that behind stability can hide boredom, and behind predictability, the loss of passion. In psychology, this is called the Coolidge effect, the pursuit of novelty that elicits excitement and interest. Both men and women are susceptible to this effect. It simply manifests differently. If a woman lives for years in predictability, if every day is like a copy of the last, if no one surprises her or seeks her out, then even a slight display of attention from outside can seem like a flash of light in the darkness. This doesn't mean she has stopped loving her husband. It doesn't mean she has changed for the worse. It means she has missed herself, the one who was once loved, desired, pursued. We are most alive when we are in love. But love is not just being together. It's being chosen anew, again and again. When a woman feels that she is interesting again, that she can attract, that someone is making an effort for her, it restores her access to that inner energy she lost in the whirlwind of duties. She remembers herself young, confident, desired. And though she doesn't plan to cross boundaries, she may begin to approach them, because it is in these fleeting moments that she feels alive. Secondly, the justification game. The mind will always find a way to justify what the heart has already decided. No one wakes up and says, "Today I will betray my marriage." It doesn't work like that. When a married woman begins to engage in risky behavior, whether it's emotional attachment or physical closeness with another man, it doesn't happen suddenly. It's not an impulse. It's a subtle, barely perceptible process that begins long before the first clear signs. And it starts not with an action, but with an internal dialogue. The mind builds bridges of justification in advance. It finds loopholes, explanations, to alleviate the burden of guilt that the soul is not yet ready to bear, because guilt is unbearable. And if one can convince oneself that there's nothing truly wrong with what's happening, then the burden of responsibility is also lifted, or at least it feels lighter. How does it work? At first, everything seems harmless. It's just a little attention. So what? We're just texting. I'm not doing anything, I'm just flirting. I haven't crossed the line. I'm just enjoying that someone remembers me. It is at this stage that the most dangerous game begins, the justification game. The human brain is an amazing mechanism. If something brings pleasure but conflicts with beliefs, it begins to distort perception to maintain internal harmony. This is called cognitive dissonance, the painful tension between what a person does and what they believe. To alleviate this tension, the mind begins to defend itself. It transforms reality, embellishes, diminishes, hides. And the person is no longer just mistaken. They sincerely believe their own version of events. It's easiest to deceive oneself. This is how a woman, once devoted and faithful, imperceptibly begins to lead a double life, not in actions but in thoughts. In thoughts, where everything is permissible, where she betrays no one, where she is simply seeking emotions she lacks. She minimizes, "It's harmless. I'm not going to go further." She justifies, "If my husband paid attention to me, I wouldn't need this." She compartmentalizes, "This has nothing to do with the marriage. This is just for me, my own." But the more often she repeats these words to herself, the further she goes. For many women, the first infidelity is not physical, but emotional. That's why it's so insidious. A physical relationship is understandable. There are obvious boundaries, touches, kisses. It's easy to define them, easy to say, "I made a mistake here." But an emotional connection is a fog. It creeps in imperceptibly. Late-night conversations, full of double meanings, sincere talks where she opens her soul, sharing what she previously only told her husband, now with another man. And she tells herself, "It's just a conversation. We're just talking." There's no betrayal in that. But the truth is, emotional intimacy is the foundation of closeness. When a woman shares her feelings, fears, joy with someone else, her inner world gradually distances itself from her spouse. Betrayal is not always a physical act. The moment you start hiding something from your partner, you've already crossed the line. This is where the main danger lies. When feelings arise in a relationship, physical boundaries become blurred, and what once seemed impossible now seems permissible, because the mind has already prepared the ground, the justifications are already ready. She is no longer seeking the truth. She is seeking confirmation of her version. The final and most dangerous justification. "I deserve this." This is the final stage. The stage where doubts disappear and actions that seemed unacceptable yesterday are now perceived as a deserved right. The woman no longer hesitates, no longer seeks justifications. They already exist. They are built into her inner reality. They are armor against guilt. "I've given too much to feel unhappy. I deserve a little joy. He hasn't noticed me for years." Does he have the right to expect fidelity? I was faithful, patient, devoted. And what did it get me? What's the point of sacrifices? This is the point of no return. Here, infidelity is no longer perceived as a mistake. Here, it is compensation, revenge, a form of justice. At this stage, emotional closeness with another man seems more alive, more real than the marriage itself. The bond with the spouse fades, turning into a formality, and the mind is now completely on the side of the heart. It no longer just justifies, it asserts. You have the right. And when a person sincerely believes they are acting justly, they cannot be stopped. This is where the true danger lies. The problem is not a lack of morality, not weakness of character, but how delicately and skillfully the mind can justify what brings pleasure. It all starts with small concessions, with one thought, with one look, with one emotional need that was not heard. But if this process is not stopped in time, it will become an avalanche. And when the line is finally crossed, when the step is taken, there is no turning back. Because infidelity is not just a physical act. It is a story of internal permission to do what once seemed impossible. Thirdly, the point of no return. Every story has a moment after which nothing will ever be the same. The moment the game ends, when the masks fall, when the line, once so clear, ceases to exist at all. There is no longer just correspondence, innocent flirtation, self-deception, justifications. Something clicks inside, and what recently seemed unacceptable suddenly becomes a reality. Not a plan, not a fantasy, not a temptation, but a fact. The most terrifying thing is that most women don't even realize when exactly this happens, because the point of no return doesn't sound like thunder. It arrives silently. It hides in a half-second of silence, in the trembling of hands after the first touch, in how easily everything happened and how difficult it is to stop now. In psychology, this is called the threshold theory. It explains why even those who swore never one day say, "How did this happen?" The truth is simple. The hardest part is doing it for the first time. The first time she sends a message she shouldn't have. The first time she agrees to meet, just as friends. The first time his hand rests on hers and she doesn't pull away. This is that moment, the moment when everything changes, because after the first time, the second becomes easier and the third already a habit. And so, what was previously taboo is now perceived as the norm, not because beliefs have changed, but because internal tolerance has changed. The most dangerous lie a person tells themselves at this stage, I can stop anytime. But is that really true? In reality, no. Because when emotions are involved, when the dopamine pleasure system is activated, it's no longer just a relationship with a person. It becomes an addiction to the state he evokes. Neurobiologists have proven romantic and sexual attractions activate the same brain areas as drugs. One look, one touch, one voice. And the brain demands another dose. Euphoria, a dopamine rush, a sense of life, significance, desire. Even if she tells herself, that was the last time, she will always find a reason to return, because now it's no longer about him. Now it's about herself, about who she feels she is next to him, about that version of herself she is afraid to lose again. When the heart no longer belongs at home, lying initially causes discomfort, then becomes a habit, and then a reality. Initially, lying is unpleasant. For the first time, she hides a message. For the first time, she invents why she was late. For the first time, her heart tightens with fear hearing, "Who are you texting?" It feels wrong. It breaks something inside. It bothers her. But the human brain is amazingly adaptable and terrifyingly ingenious when it comes to defending what it desires.
Over time, guilt transforms into strategy. She becomes a master of disguise, deleting messages, changing names, learning to control her facial expressions when asked relevant questions. She begins to live in two realities, clearly demarcating them in her mind. And the deeper this duality, the less guilt she feels, because she already believes in her own lie. And here begins the true spiral of decline. The longer the secret exists, the harder it is to break. The longer she lives in this internal split, the more accustomed she becomes to the division. She tells herself, I'll end this soon, just not now, a little later. But later becomes never. Weeks turn into months, and one day, looking back, she realizes she is in a trap she wove for herself. The ultimate transformation in her consciousness occurs imperceptibly, but in it lies the essence of the entire tragedy. She stops perceiving her husband as her person. In her perception, he is another man, and the true, real one is out there. The one with whom she feels closeness, the one to whom she entrusts her thoughts, the one to whom her heart belongs. And when this happens, even if physical infidelity hasn't yet occurred, the soul has already departed. At this stage, only two possible endings remain: she is caught, or she leaves, unable to live any longer torn between two worlds. So why do married women sometimes become the easiest prey? Because they are not looking for infidelity. They are looking for a feeling that once filled their lives. A feeling they lost. And when they find it, walking away from it becomes impossible. Not because they don't love their husbands, but because they sincerely believe, what I feel now, I will never experience again next to him. And once that thought takes root, nothing will ever be the same. You have the power. The power to see what is hidden. The power to recognize quiet signals before they turn into a storm. The power to read between the lines. The power not to be blind in a game most people don't even realize they're playing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.